with Matt Moore and you work Tannehill into the offense slightly more and more and eventually make him take over, similar to what the Titans did with Jake Locker last year. Now in his second year, he's finally being moved into the starting job. I don't think that would have hurt for Tannehill to do that. But overall, the Dolphins have made a decision, and you just have to see if it works out for him.
Now, the interesting thing is everything worked positively for Ryan Tannehill, but it's interesting because I don't know if everything worked out positively for Miami, especially this year. Now, you have Tannehill now the starter, but the story is David Garrard, who was the veteran, just plugged into this offense. I think he was, especially, off of what was said off of Hard Knocks, that's about as much analysis as you can get right off, the press in Miami. David Garrard was the preseason Week 1 starter. Then he went down with a knee problem. He'll have to go through surgery. Then it was down to Matt Moore and Ryan Tannehill. And then Matt Moore, not really the greatest preseason debut in week number 2, going, against the backups. He did have, he did almost have that fourth quarter rally to bring, the Dolphins up top. They ended up losing in week 2, but honestly, I feel like Ryan Tannehill will be a project, to say the least. And not a lot of people know that Matt Moore really did rally the troops last year. Miami was a terrible football team, but they did win some big matchups, late in the year and maybe just revitalize that Dolphins squad. You would like to see how he would have fared, the ensuing year, after 1 year under his belt with the Dolphins. I don't know if this is a good move, as you said, Phil, but, Tannehill was the first quarterback drafted in the first round since Dan Marino of '83. It'll be interesting to see how Tannehill matches up against the NFL in his first year.
Yeah, Matt Moore having his solid year last year. I don't remember the exact numbers, but I know he had a winning record once he became the starter. He almost upset the Cowboys in a Thanksgiving Day game. I have plenty of friends that that are Cowboys fans that, I was watching that game with them, and I tell them, don't sleep on Matt Moore. And even after the game when the Cowboys won, they gave me my props and said that guy's definitely for real. And I kind of feel bad for Matt Moore, but it is not the best situation when you get a quarterback drafted that high. You kind of know that your job could be on the line. But at this point, they've made their decision and they're going to run with it, and it'll be interesting to see if he struggles early, if they would go back to Matt Moore if necessary. But that's something that would come up if that situation were to happen.
Exactly. I feel like the thing is with Philbin, he may have, his job security may, be intact for 4 more years. Of course, in the NFL, it's, tough to tell just when quarterbacks will be let go. Head coaches, will be let go. But Philbin, he did mention just a day or two ago that he would take a week or so to, decide whether he'll have the starting quarterback with Tannehill or Moore. He may have just rushed the decision, and he may have just gone with Tannehill before he really looked at Week 2's film and really analyzed just how good of a decision this was. Tannehill may hurt this Dolphins squad, and I wouldn't be surprised if Miami picks in the top 10 of the 2013 draft next year.
Yeah, I think simply put, regardless of who's under center, your quarterback can really only be, there's some quarterbacks that make receiving cores better than they are. But with the receiving core of Miami, at this point, I don't think it matters who's under center. You're still looking at a struggling football team in South Beach.
Exactly. I think Miami, especially with letting go Brandon Marshall, Philbin, I feel like, is a good coach, and he'll be able to put that discipline in. I feel like the Chad Johnson move was a positive one, not letting that locker room distraction get a hold of the team. But I don't see Miami making any sort of a positive progress in the win column that I saw them make, the strides last year with Matt Moore under center. Now we go to another question mark. Over in Seattle, we had Terrell Owens in a preseason debut face off against. He had an up and down game. Now we have Jason Lundergan on the line. Let's hurry up and get to him. Here's Jason on the line. He'll be talking Seahawks football. Hey, Jason, how you doing, big man? Jason? Hello? Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, Jason Lundergan, he was set to join us when we'll be talking about the Seahawks uniforms later on today, but he'll hopefully get back to us as soon as we can. All right, so let's see here. We have Terrell Owens, an up and down first half to say the least, and then he was benched in the second half. He was targeted 5 times, including a long bomb that he dropped. He should have been caught for a touchdown. Phil, I don't know if you witnessed that, but I feel like Owens, this might be a longer process to getting the starting job than you would think.
Yeah, I don't know for sure that he was targeted for the starting job. I think he was somebody to just add depth to the receiving corps. Pete Carroll had said that, expect T.O. to get a lot of action early in that game. And he definitely did. I know that I tuned in for that game, not just to watch Peyton Manning, but to see what Terrell Owens would do. And to see him drop that touchdown pass was just very disappointing. This isn't a team that's going to give up on him just for that. I mean, because he's not necessarily the starter on this team. He's just someone that will be there to add depth to the. So not like the situation with Chad Johnson where they kind of needed him to be the number one guy. But T.O., they do have some decent receivers on that team. Deion Butler, has had a very good preseason for the Seahawks. He's made a lot of catches. I think he leads the team in catches for this preseason, the first 2 games. But T.O. definitely needs a bounce back game. But overall, very, very disappointing to see him exit that game without a catch.
See, the thing is with Pete Carroll, now the lead man for the Seattle Seahawks, he called Terrell Owens' performance here in the opening preseason game for him understandable. He says he's working out hard. He says he'll make strides in making some sort of an impact in the preseason. Honestly, I feel like this will be a tough battle for him to come back because Sidney Rice is the lead man. He's the number 1 target for Seattle. You don't know what you're getting at quarterback, so the thing is, Owens has to make an impact and needs a bounce-back game. Now we have Jason Lundergan back on the line. Let's get back to him. Hopefully he'll answer this time. Hey, Jason, how you doing?
How about yourself?
Oh, I'm doing good. Actually, we are on the Seahawks topic at the moment, and I would like to get your thoughts before we head over to the big topic. Terrell Owens, I don't know if you witnessed his game, but he was very disappointing in his opening game. How do you feel about his performance in Week 2?
It didn't really matter to me, though, because it's preseason, but I hope he just plays well enough to make the roster, because after all, he's only 38 years old. He's not exactly in his prime condition.
Yeah, I feel like Owens is the favorite, to make the roster, of course. They acquired him for a reason. He's their veteran that's supposed to make an impact, but Owens, a very disappointing game. You dropped a touchdown in stride, but it's one of those things that you're not going to get too many chances like that in the regular season. And right now, he seems to not really be in much of a rhythm. And honestly, with both me and Phil, feel like it's going to be a tough process for him to come back and for him to make an impact this year. Do you feel like you agree with that? Do you feel like Owens might not be the favorite to even be a number 1 late in the year?
Well, for number 1 Seahawks starter, not really. It's more like probably maybe a 3rd or 4th receiver for the Seahawks. I say he's a lock for that, but as for number 1, not really.
Now, Phil, do you have any questions for Jason? Maybe even about the Seahawks uniforms or about how Owens played or how this team in Seattle can match up and can counter coming up next year?
Well, yeah, I think the biggest topic here is, what with the NFL getting the new Nike jerseys, the only team to really get a huge makeover was the Seattle Seahawks. And being, the Seahawks guy that we know, how do you feel about these new jerseys, man?
The thing is, just like the last previous game the Seahawks made 10 years ago, not a lot of criticism though, but it's how you play. And judging by that defense I saw in the preseason, I think they'll be a threat to the 49ers for the next division. I don't know win the division, but I think they'll win in the first or 6th wild card.
Sorry, guys, we are losing reception with Jason. What do you have to say, Phil?
I just have one more question. Do you plan on getting one of these new jerseys?
Oh, the New Jerseys?
Yes.
They're all right, though, but I still don't bring back the fluorescent green jerseys they have a few years ago. Ugh, one of the worst jerseys I've ever seen. But anyway, as long as it's pretty much okay, but it looks too much like Oregon. That's pretty much my only complaint about the uniforms.
Yeah, a lot
Yeah, I
of
think that's overly, the common conception is everyone looks at them and kind of says that. Me and Nick even talking about it earlier. We both pretty much said they look very Oregon Duck-ish. But Jason, thank you for your time, man.
No problem, Bill. Thank you, Nick.
All right, thank you, Jason. That was Jason Lundergan, our very first caller in on this second edition of NFL Goldline. He was scheduled to talk about Seattle Seahawks, about the uniforms, and about Owens' production. I think he pretty much is on key with what we have to say, Phil. I feel like not only about Owens, but about the jerseys. I mean, they're not really so hot so far for Seattle. Looks very Oregon Duckish, I would say. And I mean, I feel like the Seahawks are one of those jerseys, why not stick with what you have? I mean, why go with all this green and excess, blue and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think, this team was just looking for an upstart, something new. Pete Carroll, the new head coach, bringing a lot of new players, kind of change is good. They're hoping to get a positive spin on this, so when fans look back at, their team's talent, they can say, they got the new jerseys at this point, and it's almost a new era in Seahawks football. I definitely understand what they were doing. I just wish they would have consulted a few more people with some fashion sense before they go ahead and pump these jerseys out.
Yeah, I would say that a little a little fashion-esque lacking there for Seattle in the uniform department. I feel like, let's just run down what these jerseys look like. I'm looking at a full blue jersey with, and a full blue pants, and we have some Nike green on the side. I feel like not exactly the best match for Seattle. And then their away jerseys are full white with blue numbers, and you have a blue helmet there. Honestly, yeah, I feel like this is a little desperation move for Seattle, and honestly, I feel like it's the same with Owens. He just seems in his debut in the preseason just really washed up. That was the talk going in with Owens. He missed all of last year. How will he possibly be able to come back? He did have a good stint with the Bengals in his very last regular season action, but honestly, I don't see this being a positive in the uniform department or with Owens this year.
Yeah, I think what may have been the thing, Pete Carroll saying his performance being, understandable is the word he used. And I think, for a guy who's, as Jason was saying, realistically will be a fourth and fifth receiver, was definitely put in the spotlight a little bit too much for someone who has that role. What other team do you watch their preseason game because you want to check out their, fourth or fifth receiver? I think it was not that Tio's not used to being in the spotlight, but it has been a while since he's been in that situation. Maybe just a little bit too much for him. He's got to ease back in to the, NFL action.
Yeah, I feel like it'll be an upstart battle for Owens and this football team. I mean, the Seahawks came into this next year with not a lot of talent. They didn't make that big name draft, prospect. They didn't bring that guy in. They didn't really do too much in free agency. So I don't see the Seahawks making any sort of a push. And you also have to include the fact you may lose twice to the Niners this year. Jason did say that the defense might be able to match up against the Niners, and they did rank in the top 5, believe it or not, in defense this past year. A very underrated squad because of the fact that you can't really name very many starters on the Seahawks defense. But I feel like if it isn't for this offense coming apart, I don't see how the Seattle Seahawks can put together even 6 or 7 wins this year with all the question marks all across the board.
Yeah, you see, as far as their offseason goes, they did make a splash to get Matt Flynn, their quarterback, but I think as we discussed last week, might have jumped the gun on, throwing all this money at this guy and proclaiming him as, our guy, whereas, halfway through the preseason, you don't know if he's even going to start week 1 because Russell Wilson, the guy they drafted, definitely giving him a run for their money. A little side headline here. I don't know if, Nick, if you're aware of this on NFL.com. It does look like the word they used was they're going to ramp up an effort to trade the third quarterback in that mix, Tavares Jackson. He has not played in either of the 2 preseason games, and I guess they're looking to get some value from him because it doesn't look like he's going to be their guy, and he doesn't look like he's going to get the opportunity to even try to be.
Yeah, it's not surprising. We mentioned it last week. Tavares Jackson, already, he missed week 1. Now we missed week 2. I feel like them delaying trading him at this point, it's smart that they decide to at least get some value for Tavares. Maybe he'll be a backup somewhere else in the NFL.